Hey everyone, I'm back after like 6 months or something. I got lazy, sorry. Also, I kept twisting my ankle, so it kept me not skating. I probably suck now, but I could still do a shove it. So let's talk about that. I was planning on making a kickflip video, but I think it'll be more appropriate if we do this first. Plus, if you guys have learned the ollie by now, that's great. If not, go watch the other video. But so I think you should learn to shove it now. The first thing I like to say is I think the shove it is I think it's harder than the ollie. The ollie requires 2 leg motions, so it's more coordination. But the board stays under you the whole time, so like since the shove it, it's only 1 motion, but it makes it so that you have to catch the board later. You have to like keep up with it after it spins away from you. I think that's much harder. Anyways. The first step is foot position. Your front foot doesn't do anything really, so that's a good place, I guess, behind the bolts, a few inches. The back foot's kind of like an ollie, but it's not in the middle of the tail, it's a little bit in front, so that'll help when you do the scooping motion backwards. So to do the shove it, basically you have your back foot here, and you kind of just like scoop back a little bit, so that the board turns 180 under you, not exactly under you, but in the sense that you don't turn 180 yourself. You stay put, and then you land on it. So when you put your back foot here and scoop back, it's not like a crazy scoop or anything, just enough so that the board turns 180, and no more, no less. When I started practicing, at first I started, and it wasn't very hard to get the board to go. It was hard to land it, as usual. And then, so you don't have to make the scoop very big, but certainly big enough, because just scraping the foot back won't do it. The main important part of this trick is getting the board only to spin 180 degrees or however many you want. Probably the most common problem with getting started with this trick is getting the correct spin. So I think probably the best way to practice that is what I've done sometimes is when you step off the board and have no weight on it, it'll spin relatively easily. But what you want to do is you just take your back foot, put on your tail like you usually would, and then give it a little scoop. Something like that. It should bring the board around 180. Since it is spinning, any bit that it's offset when you land, it's going to be really tough to land because it's not in the same direction as you're moving in. And if you understand inertia, then you know what I'm talking about. When you're doing just to shove it, you're pivoting on the back wheels when you scoop it. It ends up forcing the board in front of you, like after the turn, so that instead of jumping straight up like an ollie, you gotta like jump sort of forward to keep up with the board. And that was kind of hard at first, but if you do a stationary, it's not that hard. You can get it pretty easily, but the shove it really sucks. It took me longer than the ollie to learn it. Probably like it took me like 2 months to get a shove it, or I don't exactly remember, but I think it took 1 month to get a stationary shove it, which was pretty long, and it took so long, probably another month, for me to get it moving, because the difference between moving and stationary is so much on this one. It wasn't like the but even so, even though if I could get it moving, it wasn't consistent, because of probably timing issues. So anyways, moving on. I really had a hard time getting the shove it while moving, but it's actually kind of funny because I found the Pop Shuvit much easier to do while moving, and they look much cooler anyways. The only difference between that and the regular shove is that you add a pop, as the name suggests. If you want to try Pop Shuvits, do the same thing, just give it a little pop. So kind of like that. Enough for both the wheels to get off the air. So you kind of pop it, and also scoop a little bit, and the board will kind of rise up like this, and then you catch it and you bring it down, which is cool because it teaches you how to catch, which is very important when you're doing flip tricks in the future. Just remember that since there is a pop involved, there's much more of a scoop. So I guess you gotta be careful and you don't do any more than 180 degrees. I don't think that's too big of a problem right now. Frankly, I can't even do 360 shove-its, but yeah, it's just something to keep in mind. You do get a little more power, but if you direct it correctly, the power that you get from the pop makes the board go up, and you only keep a minimal spin on it that will make it go to 180. So, it looks really fast on the video, but eventually when you do it, it kind of you can it kind of slows down in your brain. You might not take my word for that, but your timing gets a little better when you do these tricks. But yeah, go out, learn some shove-its. I think they're cooler than ollies, and oh, by the way, since they do go forward, you can ride on the street parallel to a sidewalk curb. And if you do a shove-it, you can land on the sidewalk because the board goes forward when you do a shove-it. Likewise, you could do the same thing coming off the sidewalk, or yeah, it just depends on which way you skate, goofy, regular. So lastly, what I gotta say is I didn't experience that many problems on the shove-it, except for maybe getting a not enough spin. But either way, there was one thing that involved the Pop Shuvit. Was when I'm sure you saw in the part where I popped the board without being on it myself. The board kind of made a little flip. That's just a natural consequence of. So you're gonna be popping on a little bit on the front to make it turn, but it also naturally makes the board go like this, and it starts to flip. I can't necessarily stop that. The way I'm doing it, it always keeps doing that. How I've taken care of that is just when you catch it, it's certainly much harder to catch than if it were a flat. But since it's at an angle, if you get good at catching, you can always level it out using your feet and bring it to the ground while it's still in the air. Yeah, everything else seems to be just a commitment, timing, jumping forward, catching the board, and even the scoop. All those are just simple motions, just single motions with nothing else to it. There is a fear factor involved. It's just if you land before the board stops spinning, then the board rams into your shins, hits your shins and stuff, leaves a lot of bruises. But it's part of it. You'll get over it. It's not gonna stop you from skating. You can still stand up, walk around. It'll hurt only if you feel it, because it'll give you a bruise, but nothing more. So yeah, just be careful, I guess. There's nothing more I can say about that, but it's gonna happen.